My father-in-law told the family during dinner that my husband's best friend, dinner at my in-laws' house was always a loud affair. My husband grew up in a family where conversations overlapped and jokes were tossed across the table like bread rolls. I usually stayed quiet, half listening, half keeping an eye on my kids so they wouldn't knock over their glasses of milk. That night was no different until my father-in-law set down his fork, leaned back in his chair, and announced something that made my stomach turn. He said my husband's best friend would be moving into the family lake house this summer. The same lake house where we usually spent July with our kids, where my husband grew up swimming and fishing, and where every important family memory seemed to live. He said it casually, like he was announcing the weather. The table went quiet for half a second. Then my husband's sister laughed and asked if he was serious. My father-in-law nodded, adding that it just made sense. "He's like another son to me," he said. "He deserves to be there as much as anyone else." I glanced at my husband. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. He just stabbed at his food and kept chewing. This best friend wasn't some harmless childhood buddy. He was a man who had been around for years, always hovering a little too close to my husband. They met in high school, played on the same football team, and stuck together through college. But while most people grow up and create boundaries, this man never seemed to. He showed up at our apartment without notice when we were newlyweds. He came on our honeymoon just for a day because he happened to be in the same country. He dropped hints about how my husband would be better off if he didn't settle down so soon. When our first child was born, he was at the hospital. Not because we invited him, because my father-in-law had called him. He showed up with balloons and took pictures, inserting himself into what should have been private. My husband never pushed him away, but he also never welcomed him with the enthusiasm his family did. It was complicated, and I learned early on not to bring it up unless I wanted a fight. Now here we were, years later, with my father-in-law declaring that this man would be part of the lake house summers. "He's practically family," he kept repeating. My mother-in-law nodded in agreement, and my sister-in-law rolled her eyes but didn't argue. The only person who looked as uneasy as me was my husband. He finally put his fork down and said, "I don't think that's a good idea." The table went still again. His father frowned, clearly not expecting resistance. "Why not? You two are like brothers." My husband shook his head. "We're not kids anymore. I don't want him there when I'm with my wife and kids. It's our family time." His father scoffed, waving a hand. "You're being dramatic. He's alone, he doesn't have anyone. He needs us." The words landed heavy. I'd heard them before. Anytime the best friend crossed a line, the family defended him with pity. He never married, never seemed to have steady work, and was always hovering around, leaning on my in-laws for holidays, birthdays, any event where he could tag along. I saw my husband's hands clench. He muttered, "I said no," and went back to eating, though he barely touched his food after. The rest of the dinner limped along, awkward silence broken by forced small talk. I could feel my father-in-law's glare on us, like we'd committed some betrayal by daring to set a boundary. When we got in the car, my husband didn't turn the key right away. He just sat there gripping the steering wheel. I finally asked if he was okay, and he said quietly, "I'm tired of being told he's more important than my own family." We didn't talk much on the way home, but I could tell something had shifted in him. For years, he'd let his father bulldoze over his boundaries, let that best friend slide into our lives without permission. But that dinner, hearing it announced like a decree, seemed to hit him differently. The lake house was never just about summer. It was about belonging, about who got to be counted as family. My husband wasn't going to let his father decide that for him anymore. My husband shook his head.